How's it going, Rangers and overall hockey fans? Thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest episode here at Rangers Review. You can catch us live here right now on the YouTube channel if you guys are listening to this, or of course, wherever you get your audio podcasts. This is episode 63. Myself, Tyler. You guys know me as Wardy, especially from my main YouTube channel covering the New York Mets on Wardy NYM. But we have my beloved co-host, as always, Steven, Statboy Steven, that you guys know, of course, from social media, among other things. If you know the Rangers, you know prospects, and surely you know Steven by now. And we haven't recorded in a month, Steven, and a lot has happened during that time, especially on my front. I'm not going to lie. There were so many things that were happening left and right between my own. I, of course, cover the New York Mets as a daily. I work for a network now and Believes, so I have to make sure that I'm committed to that constantly too. And you've been busy with your work respectively. And during that time, some significant things have happened for the Rangers, especially over the past week. So we're going to be deep diving all the latest on the Rangers front, folks, starting with Jacob Trouba being the 28th captain in Rangers history. We are also going to be deep diving, nitpicking the brain that is Steven regarding the latest prospect updates, as the World Junior Championships right now are being highlighted by Rangers prospect Brennan Othmann and others. And then also taking a look at the team's physicality heading into the year and why Steven thinks that is an important factor for evaluating this team going forward. Playing to get into, very excited. But more than anything, Steven, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well, and yeah, we need to talk about the Trouba captaincy because we haven't had a chance yet. But yeah, last week or so, last 8 days, been pretty caught up in the World Juniors. We have 7 prospects at the start. We'll dive into that in a little bit more detail. So yeah, hockey in August doesn't always sound exciting, but for once, it actually is.
Yeah, and I'm excited because unfortunately for me, I'll tell this to everyone right now listening, I've not been able to keep up daily with the World Junior Championships the way that Steven has it all, just given my schedule. So I'm excited to hear what Steven has to say. What exactly has been going on with Othmann? I know that performance-wise, he's been close to a point per game. He's been doing really well so far. And also, how is Will Cooley looking? How is Sykora looking other than the 5-minute major I saw him get the other night? So I'm excited to go into this prospect realm a bit. But before we really deep dive that the nitty-gritty bad, Steven, let's talk about, of course, the biggest news. Now, when this first broke a week ago, we had intentions of recording, but I was actually out of town that day, so we weren't able to make it happen. Steven ended up doing a Twitter space, something he's been doing a lot lately. Make sure to check him out at, of course, Statboy_Steven on Twitter. A lot of times when he wants to talk Rangers, he just opens up his space, but he was actually on Hockey DB. Yeah, the main website for all your hockey information, invited him on to speak about the Rangers and Trouba. Kenny Albert, of course, the goated Kenny Albert was in discussion there too, and had some very choice words, positive words to say about Trouba becoming captain. But Steven, before I ask you what your raw opinion was this, I want to share mine initially and tell you how much MA has changed over this week's time. Now, we got the news originally the night before over this past week, and that was, of course, from Kevin Weeks, who does a great job breaking news wherever he is. It doesn't matter. He's going to be making an announcement happen. And when I saw Trouba, I was initially disappointed. I'm going to be full out blunt and say that because I'm someone that's been a heavy advocate for Chris Kreider, even Mika Zibanejad to a lesser extent, but one of those two at minimum felt like that they were the most deserving to be anointed captain for the New York Rangers. So when I see Jacob Trouba, a man who, do not get me wrong, had a really nice season for the Rangers this past year, and in playoffs, proved that physicality can be a factor in helping the team and they're winning. But with all that being said, Chris Kreider, a 50-plus goal season, it felt inevitable that he would be anointed captain. He's the longest tenured New York Ranger on this roster right now. Right behind him is Mika Zibanejad now, and neither of these guys are captains. So initially, I was taken back. I was not satisfied from a fan perspective, but I did know and I did understand that just because maybe from a fan's point of view, I'm not the most happy, that shouldn't denounce the potential impact it is having on the locker room. And at the end of the day, if the locker room is happy, then that is the most important thing, right? Us Ranger fans, we're going to get used to Jacob Trouba being captain. And if there's one thing we know about Rangers captains in years past, it ends up leading to trades. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that. You might have one feeling or the other. The last Rangers captain was a really strong defenseman in Ryan McDonough, who's now in the Nashville Predators. But I got plenty more to say about this. But Steven, before I do, let's hear your opinion on this matter, that Jacob Trouba is the 28th captain in Rangers history, and also some words that you heard from Kenny Albert, who does a phenomenal job on the broadcast for the New York Rangers among all teams in the AHL.
Yeah. So my initial response was that of surprise, I knew his name was in the hat. It was going to be between Kreider or Trouba. I don't think Zibanejad was ever really a candidate, but when you let it sink in a little bit, it makes sense. Of course, it changes the whole dynamic, and it changes all the stuff that we talked about over the last 6 to 12 months, because the anticipation, at least on social media, was mostly that once Jacob Trouba's no move clause expires, they're going to have to move him because you already have Fox making 9.5 million on defense, and you have Schneider, you have Lundqvist in the organization, so it's an easier gap to fill than if you would trade, let's say, Zibanejad or Panarin or Kreider. I think that's pretty much out the window. Of course, as you alluded to, captains can be traded. If you're named Ryan and you are the captain for the New York Rangers, you usually end up in Tampa. I don't want to get too much into it, but Jacob Trouba's middle name is Ryan. But no,
I did not know that. Of course, you know that. Jesus.
But no, I'm not expecting.
All right, well, we found our answer. I mean, we can just end the show now.
There you go. Rangers are the first team in NHL history to have to have 5 different American-born captains.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
So Brian Leetch, of course, was the first one. Mm-hmm. Then Chris Drury, Ryan Callahan, Ryan McDonough, and now Jacob Trouba.
Oh, that adds up. You know what? Wait. I don't know why, but maybe it was because he was in Winnipeg. But for the longest time, I thought Trouba was Canadian.
Yeah.
Makes sense. He's not. He's from Michigan, right?
He played with Brady Shea on the U.S. NTDP.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine that I just maybe lost my thought process there because of his time in Winnipeg. So
could be. No, but 4 American captains in a row never happened before in the NHL.
Very cool.
But yeah, look, Trouba is the captain of the Rangers now, and it may be a surprise to us as fans, but to the players, it doesn't come as a surprise. And I'll share some of the stuff that Kenny Albert mentioned on the Twitter space that HockeyDB invited me on, which, by the way, was really awesome. Getting a follow from HockeyDB and then a DM asking if I wanted to come on to their podcast to talk about it with a couple of other Ranger fans. It was really cool. And Kenny Albert was there, and he told about Game 4 against the Penguins where the Rangers lost and they were down 3-1 in the series. Jacob Trouba organized a team dinner to sort of get their priorities straight, to reset mentally, and then they won 3 in a row and won the series. That is captain material. That kind of stuff is what you expect from a captain. Now, I had never heard that story before, so when Kenny Albert mentioned that was new information to me. And when you hear that, your opinion changes a little bit on Jacob Trouba. When Adam Fox won the Norris Trophy last year, they wanted to have a party to celebrate. So he reached out, he contacted the Hockey Hall of Fame to have the actual Norris Trophy transported to New York to be present at the party for all the guests to see.
And by he, are you referring to Trouba here still?
Yeah, that was Trouba. Trouba called the Hockey Hall of Fame to arrange for the trophy to be transported to New York, to be present at that party to celebrate Adam Fox winning it. So, and it may not sound like much on its own, but if you add those things up, you can kind of understand why they went with Jacob Trouba as their captain. And yeah, I expected it to be Kreider because Kreider is the leader, and I've spoken to so many prospects over the years, and prospects always talk about how Chris Kreider takes them under their wing.
Yeah, he welcomes them early on.
He welcomes them early on. He invited guys like Robertson and Rushev and Crawley and Lafreniere and Miller all to Connecticut to work out with him in the offseason over the last couple of years. But the same can be said for Jacob Trouba. Keandre Miller, playing with Jacob Trouba, has really emerged as a top 4 defenseman in the league. He has taken him under his wing, and he's done it with other players too. It's just that was not really known or really visible to us as fans, but it was definitely there. And look, I don't think much is going to change in the locker room. Jacob Trouba has reached out to the 4 remaining alternate captains. As we know, Strome left. So the 4 remaining alternate captains are Panarin, Kreider, Zibanejad, and Gaudreau.
Correct.
And Trouba said to them, I don't want anything to change. This is still our leadership group. And I don't think much will change. We'll go from 6 alternates to 4. We're probably going to have 2 guys for home games. and 2 guys for road games, with Trouba being the captain for every game. So you're going to have 3 letters in a game. Yeah, it'll sort itself out. But it's good to see that Trouba wants that leadership group to stay intact. And look, Chris Drury, it was if there was not a trophy, or sorry, if there wasn't a player already whose nickname is like, the best captain, or whose legacy is not the best captain in the NHL, then Chris Drury would be in the running for that. He may not be the best player of all time, but he captained teams to championships at almost every level. If there's one guy I trust to pick the right person as captain, it's Chris Drury.
I mean, it's what he's known for, right? Even during his time with the Rangers, didn't necessarily play his best hockey, but there's a reason why it didn't take long for him to come in as captain.
I always say, and I always have to explain it, like I always have to add a disclaimer at the end, but I always say that Chris Drury was a better captain than Ryan Callahan and Ryan McDonough. Not a better player, but like as a captain, he was better. He was a leader in that locker room. Ryan Callahan has praised him over the years for turning him into the captain that he is. He learned a lot from Chris Drury. So yeah, Jacob Trouba being the captain, it's an interesting move, but with the information that Kenny Albert shared with us, the fact that they wanted to name him captain a year ago. Gorton and Davidson were planning on naming Trouba captain in 2021, but then everything went to crap. Of course, we had the Tom Wilson incident, which happened when Trouba and Kreider were out of the lineup, by the way. So maybe that plays into it a little bit as well. But you have Gorton and Davidson stepping down. There's a whole reorganization. They didn't want to name a captain right away. So, Jacob Trouba didn't feel comfortable to accept that captaincy right away with everything that was going on. So they just pushed it out a year. But Trouba was always their guy. And, I'm happy for the guy. He's had a really strong season. He may not be on Adam Fox's level, but you don't have to be the best player on a team to be the captain. Gabriel Landeskog just lifted the cup for the Colorado Avalanche, and he wasn't even a top 3 forward on that team.
Yeah. We don't need to go down. We don't need to go down the laundry list of captains that aren't necessarily the best.
No, but the only other one I want to mention is Dustin Brown, who won 2 cups in LA.
Yeah.
By the way, Dustin Brown, whose number will be retired by the LA Kings in February. His number 23. Do you know the date they picked?
Is it a date that's going to bother me?
It's actually one of the clever ones. It's not like, they're doing it on the 23rd, or they're doing it on 2/3/2023 because his number is 23. No, they're doing it on February 11th.
Oh, wait. Before you say why, can I make a prediction?
Sure.
Was that the day of his NHL debut?
No.
Oh, okay. Because that would have been a good one. That would have made sense.
So when the LA Kings won the cup in 2012 and 2014, their alternate captains were Matt Green with number 2, Andrzej Kopitar with number 11, and he was the captain with 23. So 2, 11, 23 are the jersey numbers of the leadership group that won them 2 cups.
That's cool.
That's cool. You have to admit, that's a cool one.
That is a cool one. Yeah, I can't hate on that. That's pretty neat. Yeah. And I did want to mention here about Trouba, how you heard from Kenny Albert just the multiple types of ways that Trouba has kind of solidified himself as that focal point in the locker room to really have a say and a positive influence. But what we did see as well that came out publicly, and I'm going to assume it for the most part, you had all these Rangers come out and make statements, both verbal and written. And a lot of them were just saying how basically as soon as he got in the locker room, like Trouba was the guy. Like he was the man that really took control of that locker room. He was the one that wasn't necessarily just the most inviting, but was the one that really was putting the foot down in key games and things that matter. Like he was that big voice, and not to denounce the potential of the big voice that you get with the likes of a Chris Kreider or Mikas Banjad, among others. But Trouba made himself known right from the jump when he arrived in New York a couple years ago, which again is something that if we weren't given this information, we probably wouldn't have known. We see the vocals that he shares on the ice, like any other player, of course, but it's another thing to hear this almost universally throughout the entire locker room saying that, yeah, like Trouba has been our leader for a little bit now. So it's not like none of this should be surprising. It's a little bit more surprising for us fans because, again, we didn't have this type of information until now. But I am glad in hindsight to look at this situation and say that, okay, it doesn't feel like that Kreider got completely slighted, or it doesn't feel like, even Zibanejad to a lesser extent got completely slighted. It looks like Trouba has been the guy, and for the most part, again, there's probably some feelings from certain players, but I'd imagine that at minimum 95 to 98% of that locker room are in unison on Jacob Trouba being that guy for them, and that they are comfortable with him kind of leading the charge. And even though that is an easy way to say, okay, that, yeah, the Rangers they start with Jacob Trouba, the top down, it's still a team effort. I don't think that captaincy really will change that much. I think it will continue to be exactly who he's been for the Rangers. Now he just gets to have the fan aspect, the team aspect of knowing that he is on paper a bona fide leader of this team, this locker room, and of course the organization as a whole. So, I'm happy for him. I wish him the absolute best. Trouba has definitely made me happy. He's definitely frustrated me. I had some moments in playoffs where I was liking him, and a lot of moments in playoffs where I wasn't liking him. Take your pick. But that isn't just the case with him. That's the case with plenty of other players. So I'm going to be a guy that's going to be glass half full when looking at playoff performance to an extent, and hope that he surely can help bring the Rangers and continue to help develop them to that next level as a very physical team that I know that we're going to be getting into here shortly.
Yeah. And it's he's not necessarily the best player on your team, but he does make people around him play better. In Winnipeg, he played with Josh Morrissey, who was on a great trajectory. And then Trouba left, and Morrissey's game just kind of fell off. It's similar, although Trouba is a better player than Justin Braun. It's similar to Justin Braun in San Jose, where Vlasic was playing really great with Braun, and then Braun left, and Vlasic's game took a hit. And this is just really good to see that they recognize this with Trouba. Miller had a really good surge this season. Yeah, it had a slow start, but I think mid-November he really turned it around, and by mid-January he was the best defenseman on the Rangers at times, because Fox wasn't having a great Norris caliber season this time around. But yeah, Trouba, if you look at everything, and if you hear what Kenny Albert said about him, if you hear what he's done behind the scenes, which we as fans don't really get to see, unfortunately, the choice for him to be the next Rangers captain makes more sense. And
absolutely.
I'm definitely happier with this captaincy announcement than the one in 2014 when they gave Ryan McDonough the captaincy without him being part of the leadership group before that. That was such a weird situation, and I was kind of worried that they were going to go that route with Adam Fox this time, make him captain right away without being an alternate first. But ultimately, we also have to realize as fans that putting a C on a jersey doesn't make someone captain. They just put the C on the jersey of the guy who's already acting like the captain. If
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, you are right. That does make sense. Yeah. And I wanted to address a couple more things as we pivot into the further segments here in our episode today. One I thought was funny here in the live chat from Raphael says, can we take a moment to appreciate that everything Statboy Steven predicted was wrong? The winner of the East didn't win the cup. Mott and Kopp did not return. Kreider wasn't named captain. LOL. Steven. I wish we could have you in like black and white, and you have like that depressing song. Yeah, just drink, Stephen. Granted, I thought that most of those things would happen too. So
yeah, that's why they're called predictions.
Exactly, and again, these things happen.
I have been very vocal about wanting Vinny Trocheck. Somehow Raphael doesn't mention that. I mean, I've been talking about Vinny Trocheck for about a year now. And
true. You do like Trocheck. That is fair. And the Rangers did acquire this guy named Vinny Trocheck. Coincidence? Yeah. I think not. At Big Apple Hockey in chat, how's it going, buddy? He says, hey, boys, I think the Trouba was a good choice. Awesome. Appreciate your kind words in here as always. Appreciate everyone here in the live show. Or if you're listening just audio-wise, appreciate you guys for that too. But I want to mention a couple things because we really haven't acknowledged them. Well, one is the return, not that it means much, because it really doesn't. A kind of interesting one. The Rangers bring back Jimmy Vesey. We did not discuss that.
Well, it's not official yet. I haven't
It's
seen
not. It's
any
not
of
official, but it feels like it's there. I mean,
Is this like
unless
is this
Larry
like
Brooks got something wrong, which
mm,
again, it's Larry
well,
Brooks.
I
So
mean, Larry Brooks also said Derek Stepan wasn't going to get traded 2 hours before he was traded to Arizona. So
true. So
no,
we're gonna
look,
go with an assumption on this one.
if Jimmy Vesey rejoins the Rangers, it's not going to be for more than a fourth line role, and he's going to have to battle with Sammy Blais, Ryan Carpenter, Barclay Goodrow, Ryan Reeves, Dryden Hunt, Julien Gauthier, and Johnny Brodzinski.
I really just don't see the fit.
I don't
Other
see the
than
fit.
depth, and maybe you have him in pardon me, with the Wolfpack, but
I don't see the fit either. I'm not even sure he's going to sign with us. I think he's going to join the Rangers for preseason on a tryout, like he did with the Devils before he signed with them. He's going to get a tryout like we did with Ryan Malone a couple of years ago. You're going to get a couple of guys on a tryout for preseason. They're going to play a couple of games, and then they make the decision. But Vesey has to beat out like 4 or 5 guys to even make the team on the fourth line.
yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna break a sweat at all if this does not happen. I'm just mentioning it because I know that this is something that has swirled right around the same time, coincidentally enough, around that time that Trouba was anointed captain. But news that did happen that I'm pretty certain about is the Rangers making a nice acquisition of Garth Joy. Did you see this announcement, Steve?
Yeah, Garth Joy and Andrew Snyder.
Yes, especially about Joy. I like this pickup for the Rangers. He was a long time pro scout for the Colorado Avalanche, and the Rangers have now brought him in for the role, as a matter of fact, of the new associate director of player personnel and pro scouting. And that's big because apparently one of Joy's key roles during his time in Colorado for multiple years was advising his general managers on potential NHL trade acquisitions.
Yeah, so I think it was last year the Rangers acquired John Lilly from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yes, I remember that.
So I think John Lilly and Garth Joy will work side by side. Garth Joy comes in to replace Chris Morehouse, who left, I think, for the San Jose Sharks to become an assistant general manager there.
Shout out to David Quinn, by the way. He's the head coach in the AHL again with the San Jose Sharks.
And then general manager in San Jose is Mike Greer, who also came over from the Rangers organization.
Yep.
And then we had Kevin Maxwell, who left. I'm trying to remember where I think he went to the St. Louis Blues. Kevin Maxwell. He
was
with
know
the
more
Rangers
than I would
for over a decade. So there are some organizational changes. But overall, I think the Rangers are now in a position where they've replaced the guys they wanted to replace. Of course, Bobrov left a year ago.
Yeah,
that left a big hole. Now Morehouse is leaving.
Bobrov went with Gordon to Montreal, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I hope that the Rangers are now going to revamp the European scouting a little bit more because look, in Europe, you still need to be able to draft the right guys. Look at the Detroit Red Wings. Ranger fans complain some Ranger fans complain all the time about drafting too much from Europe, but the Red Wings have drafted like half the population in Sweden the last couple of years. It's ridiculous, but it works. They drafted Moritz Seider, even though he's German. He played in Sweden. They have a really good system there. If the Rangers can do something similar, because there's not a lot of teams that have that kind of extensive scouting in Sweden, in even Sweden and Finland. Their North American scouting needed revamping. They've done that now. They've made some really good picks. Brennan Othmann, Braden Schneider, Matthew Robertson, Will Cooley, Dylan Garand, some good picks out of major juniors. So yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see how the new guys do, but it's interesting that they were able to find replacements on such short notice.
Yep. No, 100% agree with you. And you know what, Steven? I think I'll give you the option. Do we want to pivot to Othmann and the World Junior Championships now, or do we want to go to team physicality and wrap things up on the World Junior Championships? You take your pick. We'll do whichever.
Let's go with team physicality first, and then that'll tie right into the World Juniors. To be honest,
I'm glad that you picked that because I felt like that was kind of a nice pivot from Trouba as is, because when you think about physicality, you think no further than Jacob Trouba. He's the man that look at what happened with Sykora, which was a clean hit this past year. Literally put the man in like a stretcher. See what happened with Sidney Crosby. Apparently, there's a large contingency of fans. Almost all of them are not New York Rangers fans, might I add, that believe that it was a dirty hit. There's a lot of people that believe. I said almost. I said almost.
The Trouba hit on Crosby is often labeled a headshot, but he didn't even hit the head.
I know.
So
I know. Again, am I surprised that a man who has concussion issues in his career to begin with got concussed by a big hit? No, I'm not at all. But that's besides the point. Trouba has been the clear leader, not just in the locker room, but on the ice when addressing physicality. And Steven, I'm curious what your takes are right now on give a quick outlook on the 2022-2023 Rangers and the team physicality. It's something that they obviously improved to a degree this past year than what we saw in the Tom Wilson incident era the year prior. However, this team, not too many drastic changes, but starting with the center position, I think you can make the rightful argument that the Rangers have already brought in more team physicality with a player that is hard-nosed, who has some slight edge to his game, and Vinny Trocheck. He's not afraid to get in those corners. He's not afraid to use his body. And I would easily make the argument that he's a more physical center than what the Rangers had in both the Ryan Strome and Andrew Koppa alike. So what's your take on Trocheck's physicality and the remainder of the club as we head into our next season?
Yeah, I think Trocheck's biggest asset that he brings to this team is not necessarily his physicality. Of course, he has it. But, he's really good on face-offs, really good possession player. You can trust him to take your defensive zone draws. And even if he does lose the draw in his own zone, that's where that physicality comes in. He doesn't mind going into the corner and win the puck back. Whereas Strome didn't really do that. And Andrew Kopp, he wasn't here long enough to make a real good assessment on this team, but probably not what the Rangers were looking for in that second line center position. Trocheck, physicality, better than Strome. He's not a bruiser, but he's not afraid to go into the dirty areas. And then the other guy they got, because they had to keep their Ryan quota at a steady level at 3, is Ryan Carpenter, who of course played for Gerard Gallant in Vegas for the Golden Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Played for the Calgary Flames, the team that Kevin Rooney signed for. So
we basically traded them without even trading them.
It's essentially a trade, yeah. So they keep their number of Ryans at 3 with Lindgren, Reeves, and Carpenter. Which, by the way, the Rangers have had at least one Ryan on their team every season in the salary cap era.
That honestly, I don't mind if that changes.
And of course, we have the return of Sammy Blais, who was activated from LTIR yesterday. So he's
about damn time. Happy to have you back, Sammy.
On opening night. On defense, Braden Schneider is a year older. Keandre Miller is a year older. And Keandre Miller in the playoffs, if you remember, was playing with a little bit more of an edge than he did in the regular season. If he can build on that, if he can carry that into the regular season, our defense is going to look really good. Right now, the only question mark is who's going to be your third pair left-handed defenseman. Is it going to be Jones, or is it going to be Lundqvist, or is it going to be Libor Hayek?
I mean,
if you want to, if you
can't be playing, bro.
Out of the 3, Libor Hayek is the worst. He shouldn't be playing simply because he's not good enough.
I really just hope that the Rangers and these kids make a statement here in camp where, like, it's not even discussion. That Hayek is either your 7th defenseman or is with the Wolfpack. I mean, that's what I hope for, because that's kind of the mindset that we had slightly heading into last season.
So now the question is it going to be Jones or Lundqvist? Now, Lundqvist is a little bit better at absorbing hits. So
what about Matthew Robertson, though, Steven?
I don't think Matthew Robertson is NHL ready. He's definitely behind those two. The fact that he was invited to a prospect development camp and the other two weren't is a clear indicator that he's not there yet at that level.
Okay.
But he could be. He could be like throughout the season. But they're going to have to make a decision with these guys because Jones and Lundqvist are both NHL ready. You're going to have to move at least one of them. If you're going to call up Matthew Robertson, you're going to have to trade both because the last season, Nils Lundqvist requested a trade when he was in Hartford. Zach Jones refused to dress for one of the games. I've heard when he was sent down. They don't want to be in Hartford. They're not happy. They want to be in the NHL. They think they're good enough, and I kind of agree. They're good enough to play in the NHL. It's just that we have a logjam on defense. They cannot both play on our blue line this upcoming season. So at least one of them is going to have to be traded. And I love Zach Jones. I love what he brings to the team. But with the physical edge and where this team is going under Chris Drury and Gerard Gallant, I'm not sure Gallant trusts Zach Jones in on defense because look, this is not my opinion because I think Zach Jones would be perfectly fine on the third pair. But Gerard Gallant is the type of coach that played Braden McNabb over Shea Theodore when he was in Vegas. So we'll see what happens there. But at forward, it's going to be very interesting what's happening there because are Kako and Lafreniere going to play top six minutes now, continuously every game? Or we're going to have that weird situation where one of them is on the third line again?
And Krasov, where does he fit in all this, right?
Yeah, and if Kako and Lafreniere are top six, together with Kreider and Panarin, that would put Kravtsov on the third line with Hedel as a center, and then the other wing could be Blais, maybe Goudreau. I don't know.
Which is what we were hoping for last year. It feels like deja vu, the discussion that we're having right now, honestly.
Yeah. Look, maybe Othmann surprises in camp and earns a spot on opening night. I'm not ruling it out. I mean, Anthony Duclair made the team in 2014.
Yep.
And that was a year after he was drafted. He wasn't eligible to go to Hartford at the time. He played half a season in New York, went to the World Juniors, and then finished the season in the QMJHL. A similar path could be in the books for Othmann. So we'll see what happens there. But I think this team on opening night is better than this team was last year on opening night.
Oh, I agree. And not just with necessarily how the roster looks on paper, but more so with the experience they have now. This team now has that hunger, that taste. Now, granted, I know that Kreider, of course, he's had his runs with the team. Zibanejad, same thing among some others. However, they haven't had those runs in a while. So I'm sure it's really thrilling for them to get that taste of deep playoff hockey again. And that's going to be a heavy driver for every single one on this roster now in the season and going forward.
I think Mika Zibanejad has proven that he's a first-line center now.
Oh, he's been a first-line center for years, Steven.
Yeah, but there was always this question, can he do it in the playoffs?
And he did. And the crazy thing, though, is that we were literally a game away from viewing Mika as like the biggest issue for not showing up in those first 3 games against Penguins. Like we were all like, wow, okay, like this is what we're dealing with. We have a big problem. Like we need to trade Mika. Like that was the discussion, literally up until game 4, game 5, game 6.
There are only 2 players in Rangers history who had more points in a single postseason than Mika Zibanejad.
Yeah.
Brian Leach and Mark Messier, both in 1994. That's it. That's the only players that have more points than Mika Zibanejad last season. He had 81 points in 81 games in the regular season, point per game. He had 50 and 56. He had 75 and 57. 74 and 82. Honestly, he's been a point per game player for the last 4 years. It's good. He's the number 1 center. We'll see what happens with Kreider, but the young guys are a year older. You have Lafreniere, Kako. They're a year older on defense. You have Schneider, Fox, Lindgren, Miller. They're young enough where a year of experience makes them significantly better.
Do you not to cut you off, Steven, I just want to ask, staying on the physicality topic of it all, do you think the Rangers will carry over to a certain extent the physical presence that they've shown in playoffs to begin this next season? Or do you think that that completely diminishes, knowing that playoff hockey is always just a different animal and the Rangers will kind of go back to, starting off the season as we're accustomed to them, which is a team that normally has, for the most part, a lack of physical presence? Which take do you think it'll be?
Look, I don't think you're going to see a lot of fights, but the physicality, they definitely need to build on that. And having Blay back in the lineup will help. Carpenter doesn't shy away from contact. Same with Goudreau. So the bottom six, I'm not worried about. The top six, you don't really have any guys that really like to throw at a hit. And look, it's probably not going to happen this season, but I would love to see Brennan Othmann play with Panarin and Trocheck. I mean, the forecheck that Othmann has in his game, he goes into the corners, he wins the puck. And then imagine his slap shot on a Artemi Panarin setup.
Oof.
Nah, that would just be beautiful.
Don't get me that excited, Steven. We're on air right now.
I know, but maybe we're still a year or two away from witnessing that on a regular basis. But I do think there's definitely potential there for Othmann to crack the top six. And maybe we'll have Kravtsov and Kakko on the third line with another center if Hedl isn't staying. And then your top six Rangers would be Kreider, Panarin, Othmann, Lafreniere. Who knows? The Rangers have a lot of young players in their organization, in that you're going to have to give them minutes now. Because same with Hedl. And if not now, then when? I forget who brought it up on Twitter, but if not now, then when? If you're not going to trust them now after the postseason they had, when are you ever going to trust them?
Well, going back to Othmann for a second, Steven, let's pivot into Othmann now, because you say that you don't expect it this season. And let's deep dive the curious case of Brennan Othmann, because there are some believers out there that maybe it could start as new as this year, or it'll be, again, at minimum a year away. So what exactly makes you think that Brennan Othmann is still not potentially NHL ready at this juncture? And at this point in time, when do you think is the best timeline for someone like him that us fans should expect?
I'm not saying that he's not NHL ready, but we have kind of a logjam at the moment. If you look at our top six and we assume that Kakko and Lafreniere are going to be in there, that has Kreider, Panarin, Zibanejad, Trocheck, Kakko, and Lafreniere. So he would have to earn a third line spot. You're not going to put Kravtsov on the fourth line. So if Kravtsov makes the team and Hedl is the third line center, then it's going to be either Othmann or Blay or Goudreau. I'm not sure Gallant will trust a young line of Othmann, Hedl, Kravtsov. I know we had the kid line last season, but that was with Kakko and Lafreniere. This is a different beast, different players. I'm just not sure Gallant really wants to go that route. On the other hand, they do have 9 games to figure it out, and then they can send him down without burning a year off his ELC, or they can keep him on the team for 3 months and send him back down after the World Juniors. Anthony Duclair made the team in 2014 after we made it to the Stanley Cup final. That was before Hagelin was traded away. That was with St. Louis still on the team. Zuccarello was on that team. So it's not like there were massive holes in our winger depth in the summer of 2014. And he still made the team on the third line. So I think there's a possibility, but if he doesn't make it, it won't be necessarily because he's not ready. It'll be because we are just too deep on the wing at the moment.
Okay, that's a far more fair assessment, because it really does feel like Brennan Othmann is not far off from being an AHL caliber player, which is amazing to say for a kid that was just drafted 2 years ago, right? Like he's
last year, 1 year ago.
Yeah, 1 year, like not even a full 2 years. It's insane how quick Brennan Othmann has progressed. He dominated, of course, with the Firebirds this past year in Flint for the OHL, and now he's not skipping a beat in limited time, no less, here in the World Junior Championships, right? He wasn't playing in that game 1. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then since then, he has 6 points in 7 games?
3 games.
Three games. Oh my goodness, that's ridiculous. So, what has stood out so much about Othmann thus far here in the World Junior Championships? I know that he's been playing with some great talents for Team Canada, but what about his game is so exciting to you as someone that, again, has gotten to know him personally, did an interview with him a couple months ago, has understood how his game has been, probably to a higher degree than most Ranger fans at this juncture. And then not only him, how has Will Cooley looked? How has Sykora looked? How has the other kids that are still in the junior championships looking to really break down the latest on the Rangers prospect system?
Yeah, so to start out with Othmann, Canada played a pre-tournament game against Sweden, basically an exhibition game before the World Juniors started. In that game, Othmann took 2 penalties, and the coach, David Cameron, then decided to scratch him for game 1 in favor of Zach Ostapchuk. Now, Zach Ostapchuk is not a bad player, but the kid had 43 points in juniors this past season.
For which league?
In the WHL for the Vancouver Giants.
So we really picked a kid who doesn't even have 50 points when Othmann had like 100 points in the OHL this past year.
Othmann had 50 goals, 97 points.
Exactly.
But, they played against Latvia. They won the game 5-2. If you win as a coach, you're right, even though he was wrong. But whatever. Game 2, Othmann comes into the lineup, starts on the 4th line with Will Cooley. And then gets a goal set up by Will Cooley. And midway through the game, he's moved up to the 1st line. Now, the 1st line, he was playing with Mason McTavish, 3rd overall pick last year by the Anaheim Ducks.
Yep.
And Connor Berard, who's the consensus 1st overall selection for next year's draft.
Berard is that special talent because at the age of, 16 is when he was brought in juniors. The illustrious
15,
age 15 that goes in hand with the Tavareses, the Stamkoses, the McDavid, et cetera. Yeah, and of course Rangers legend. Let's not forget Sean Day, who again, not going to fault him because of what happened in his personal life, but yes, it's a very big deal to be picked at that age for certain.
Yeah, it's called exceptional status. So players are eligible when you're 16, but if you're really outstanding, they will grant you exceptional status to enter juniors a year early. Shane Wright is another player who was granted exceptional status, who's of course a former teammate of Brennan Othmann when they played for the Don Mills Flyers in the Greater Ontario Hockey League. But Othmann was moved up to the 1st line. Had an assist. He had really good forecheck going on, and then he intercepted a pass by the goalie, and then set up Mason McTavish for an easy goal right in front of the crease.
Nice.
Next game against Czechia, he's on the 1st line from the start, and he finishes the game with 2 assists. The first one was on the power play. Nothing really to write home about. It was a secondary assist. The second assist was also a secondary assist, but much more noticeable, where he had an outlet pass from his own zone into the neutral zone to Berard, who then passed it to McTavish, who had a breakaway for a goal. So he had 3 points in game 1 in his first game, 2 points in his second game, and then in his 3rd game 2 nights ago against Finland. Canada was under a lot of pressure. They hadn't generated any shots on goal in the first 5 minutes. Othmann goes into the corner. He forces a turnover and then goes in front of the net. And it was Owen Zellweger with the shot, and he tips it in front of the net for his 2nd goal and 6th point of the tournament. So the goals he's scoring and how he's contributing, it's really interesting because it's not like the fancy plays. He's contributing in an NHL fashion. The goal he scored against Finland, that is a goal that translates really well to pro hockey, in my opinion, because he goes into the corner to cause the turnover and then positions himself in front of the net and scores off a deflection. Kreider last season had 17 goals off a deflection. Do you know the 2nd highest number of goals in a single NHL season?
And Kreider's was first with 17.
No, yeah. So since the NHL started tracking this in 2009, the 2nd highest number of deflections to result in goals in a single season is 12, and Kreider had 17.
Okay.
So can you imagine Othmann working out with Kreider and sort of like growing into that kind of player?
It would be from one to another. in that
Exactly.
sense.
I
That
mean,
net front presence is huge, and I
yeah,
love it because I feel like we've had discussions with people here in the show and just in general that somehow denounce Chris Kreider's hands. I mean, like, I just think that's the funniest shit. He's for years now been the best of the best in the AHL at
yeah.
deflections in front. If you don't think that's an important aspect of a player's game, everyone's entitled to their opinion. You're just, I mean, it's hard to look at that and not look at you and say that you're wrong.
Mhm.
Truly,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, if it isn't for that, where's Kreider on the goal scoring sheet out of his 50 plus this past year, right? Like,
mhm, yeah.
it was a major factor for him. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Othmann, he faced adversity with being scratched for game one.
Yep.
Battled through it, started on the fourth line, worked his way up, and he works so well with McTavish and Bedard because he brings that edgy forechecking style to that line, and that line needed that, to be honest. But at the same time, he still has that snipe where he can score a goal. The goal that he scored that was assisted by Cooley, his first goal of the tournament, was a snipe from what I call his office. Like in the middle of the right circle, he sniped it with the goalie being too late to cover. Um, so yeah, really happy with Othmann. 6 points in 3 games. They're playing tonight against Switzerland, which is going to be an interesting game for Othmann and also Mason McTavish. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Mason McTavish was born in Switzerland. And Brennan Othmann's grandmother is from Switzerland.
Don't tell
So
me that they have a connection somehow. Other
in
than
their draft year, they were allowed at age 17 to play in the Swiss league. So they played for the same team, EHC Olten.
oh, I didn't know they played together. I remember when Othmann obviously went to
Yeah,
Switzerland. I didn't
they
know they
played
played
together
together.
for that team. They were roommates together in Switzerland.
No
Uh,
shit.
yeah, yeah. Mason McTavish has 13 points. Othmann has 6. So combined, they have 19 as players with Swiss roots. The Swiss team they're facing tonight, all those players combined have 23 points. And
They probably wish that they had them on their team right now.
the two of them have 19. So tonight's going to be an interesting game. I think there's about 8 players on that Swiss team that played in the Swiss league the same season as those two did. So
So they have
there's
that
going to be
familiarity a little bit.
there's going to be some familiar faces for them on the ice tonight. Yeah, yeah. Of course, Cooley is on that Canada team on the fourth line. Not as big of a role, but still an interesting player to watch, to focus on when you watch the games. He has a goal and an assist. He did get a 5-minute major penalty in the last game against Finland in the third period. So he got a game misconduct because it was a knee on knee. And in junior hockey, if it's a major penalty, it's an automatic game misconduct for that kind of foul. And then there's goalie Dylan Garand, who played 3 out of the 4 games. They had a back-to-back, so he only played one of those 2. He has a .930 save percentage so far in the group stage.
Not bad.
So that wraps up Team Canada. They're facing Switzerland tonight, and if they advance to the semifinals, they will play the winner of Sweden against Latvia.
Okay.
Now, Latvia, I'll get into a little bit more when we get to Adam Sykora. But first up, Jaroslav Chmelars, who plays for the Czech Republic, or sorry, Czechia, 5th round pick in 2021. Moved to Finland when he was 14. He played for Jokerit, but this upcoming season will play for the Providence Friars in the NCAA. He had 1 goal against, let me think, I think it was also against Finland. He had a goal from a really tight angle. Do you remember the Erik Karlsson goal in the playoffs in 2017?
Yes, of course I do. Yeah,
That kind of
that's
that
iconic.
kind of goal. Really
Okay.
bad angle shot, and it went in. Good for him though. Got the goal. Unfortunately, also had a major penalty and game misconduct this tournament because he hit Othmann in the back, and Othmann went face first into the boards.
Of course, he hits his like future teammate of all things. It's like they
Yeah,
have to.
no worry though. I spoke to Chmelars about a day later, and he and Othmann met up after the game, and Chmelars said that he's gonna buy him a steak dinner the next time they're together in camp in New York. So all good, no hard feelings. But it was interesting to see one prospect push another prospect into the boards. Unfortunately, Chmelars suffered an injury. He missed the last game of the group stage. So he's questionable for tonight's game. Czechia plays the United States. with Brett Berard, who's going to be Khmelar's teammate in college. Berard has only 1 point. He scored a goal on the power play against Sweden in a 3-2 win to claim the top spot in the group. But he has been involved in 5 power play goals. Now, he hasn't gotten a point yet on those other goals, but he's been on the ice for 5 power play goals. So he's contributing. He's a guy that like on the broadcast, they mentioned it several times. He's a pest. He's always nagging people, and he's always, doing little things with his stick to snap opponents out of their focus. A quick jab on the goalie's glove when he covers the puck. The type of player that you hate to play against.
And that's the exact type of players that I love to have on this team.
Well, it's a good thing you like those, because apparently that's what we've been drafting the last 2 years, because all these guys have played like this. Out of the forwards we have, Cooley has been the least physical one.
just as we all expected, right?
And that's saying something, because Cooley is the guy that everyone compares to Tom Wilson. And that's not because Cooley hasn't been physical. It's just that the other guys have also not shied away from laying some big hits. So yeah, Berard's going to go up against Khmelar's Czechia team for a spot in the semifinal. And if they win, they will face Finland with Kalle Väisänen, who we drafted in the 4th round. Kalle Väisänen and Finland beat Germany earlier today, 5-2.
Okay.
Väisänen has a goal and an assist, and he's playing on the 3rd line on the right wing, ahead of Brad Lambert, who's on the 4th line. So that's an interesting one.
Brad Lambert is going to be a very interesting guy for me. Who Lambert went to Winnipeg, right?
With our pick, yep.
It's crazy. Like from one big body Finn in line A to the next. Obviously, they are the exact same. But yeah, when I realized that it was a Rangers pick too, that did sting a little bit, just because it's not like we brought back Kopp, but it is what it is.
So yeah, that's Väisänen. He's already in the semifinals with Finland. So I mean, it's hard to root for one player in the game when they play against another one that's also a Rangers prospect. So as long as Sweden doesn't win it, I'm going to be happy. I want at least one Ranger prospect to win the gold.
And isn't it funny? Because for the longest time, for anything Sweden, I feel like us Ranger fans were in unison and supporting, And
now it's the only big team that we don't have representation. I
know it's crazy how much things can change.
And then the final player to touch on is Adam Sykora. Plays for Slovakia. Is still 17 years old, as everyone knows. 2nd round pick this summer for the Rangers.
And already signed his ELC with the Rangers.
Yeah, he was the 2nd fastest player to ever sign an entry-level contract with the Rangers after just 6 days.
Crazy.
The only player that signed an ELC faster was Alexis Lafreniere, and he was 1st overall pick.
Inevitably, yeah.
So, but yeah, he had 1 goal, Adam Sykora, against Latvia. Really good passing play in the offensive zone. Unfortunately, Sykora against Finland also had a major penalty and a game misconduct. He stuck out his knee and hit Joachim Kemel, who was a 1st round pick this summer. But so Sykora and Slovakia are eliminated because Latvia beat Czechia. So Latvia finished in 3rd in the group, Czechia in 4th, and Slovakia and Sykora finished in 5th. So they're out of the tournament. But yeah, Sykora, Khmelars, and Cooley with a game misconduct. First time ever there are 3 Ranger prospects in the same World Juniors tournament to get a game misconduct. The only other time the Rangers had 2 players with a game misconduct was 2006. Tom Pyatt and Zdeněk Behensky.
Yeah, still don't know Zdeněk at all. Tom, I know. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Tom's best days with Ottawa?
Yes. Sorry.
You're good.
Tom's biggest value was to be part of the Gomez McDonough trade for the Rangers.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Wow.
But yeah, he played for the Senators. His brother Taylor Pyatt played for the Rangers years later, of course, 2013. It was 2013, 14, I think.
Yeah, Taylor wasn't bad, but he had concussion issues too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But yeah, Zdeněk Behensky was a 3rd round pick in 2004. Never played for the Rangers. Only played 13 games for the Hartford Wolfpack. And he retired a year or two ago after spending the last years of his career in Italy, Romania, and Poland. So,
Wow.
yeah, I never thought I'd mention that name in 2022, but here we are.
If anyone's
Um,
going to mention it, I'm going to go on a limb and say that Steven's going to be the one to mention it. So it checks out.
maybe. But yeah, no. Other than that, look, Slovakia being eliminated sucks because they're having one of their best generations in 2 decades.
Oh, I mean, this draft alone was massive for them.
Yeah, they had Juraj Slavkovsky first overall, Simon Nemec second overall. Then they had Filip Mešar at the end of the first round. Those three players were not in the tournament because they were not released by their NHL teams. So they're missing their three best players, and unfortunately, they go out in the first round in the group stage. But yeah, other than that, we still have 6 players in it. 3 on Team Canada, and then we have Czechia, Finland, and the United States, where we have representation. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Canada is going to do. Canada, of course, is a story with a lot of like dark clouds. It's a team that has like dark clouds hanging over them because of everything that happened this year with the assault cases.
I know it's as unfortunate as it is to say, I feel like that's something that's going to just continue to come out.
Yeah.
As we're in a day and age with social media where we're able to find this information quicker than
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
And the sad thing, not just about hockey culture, but with a lot of sports cultures, is especially for kids, young, immature, they're doing stupid shit, really bad
Yeah.
things a lot of the times. And now
Yeah,
it's becoming more apparent till it's becoming a light now, which is a good thing. But it's a terrible thing at the same time that these things are apparent and are happening.
It's just unfortunate that the kids of this year's tournament are kind of being negatively impacted by something that happened
exactly.
4 or 5
They
years
have it
ago.
blooming. It's no different than the players that were impacted with everything going on with Russia and Ukraine when they
Yeah,
have no factor in it whatsoever. And
yeah,
odds are they're against what's happening too. Yet they face backlash just because at the end of the day they are Russian, for example. You know what I mean? It really is
mhm.
unfortunate.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the whole Russia thing, but I was kind of hoping the IIHF would do what the IOC did during the Olympics.
Which was
Well, when Russia was not allowed to compete in the Olympics, but the Russian athletes were under a neutral flag, so they competed as in 2018 as Olympic athletes from Russia.
okay.
And I wish they could have done something similar for the World Juniors because you're taking away an opportunity for these kids. And let's look at the World Juniors as a whole, right? We all watch it because we want to see the big prospects. We want to see Mason McTavish, and we want to see Brett Berard, and we want to see Brennan Othmann and Connor Bedard, and we expect those guys to play in the playoffs. But for 75% of these players, this is the highlight of their career. This is the biggest stage they'll play at. Because these are guys that are going to go to college. They're never going to play pro, or if they do play pro, it's going to be in like the Austrian league or wherever. 75% of players in this tournament are never going to have a bigger stage than where they're playing now. And I hate that this opportunity is taken away from 18 and 19-year-old Russian kids just because they were born in the wrong country.
It's a damn shame, and we won't have to go on that tangent further. But I think most people are under the same mindset that don't get me wrong, there are terrible things going on, but they are not the root cause of it. So there's
Yeah.
no need to punish them for that reason.
Yeah.
But okay, let's get to before we wrap up the show. There's 2 things I want to go over. One is a nice comment here in the live chat. Question for Steven. What is your thoughts on new head of scouting for North America, Andrew Schneider? Was a recent scout for the Devils past few years, and he's asking specifically, obviously, because of the departure that is Chris Morehouse, because he really liked what he did with the Coolies, the Schneiders, the Othmans, the Garons, and among others over the past couple of years. So, what's your initial take, if at all, regarding new acquisition Andrew Schneider?
Yeah, I mean, he worked for the Devils as a scout and then the head of CHL scouting. Now it's hard to really gauge what his impact has been because it's easy to look up which players they've drafted from the CHL, but it's not just that. for instance, in 2019, they won the draft lottery with where they drafted Jack Hughes. But we don't know who they would have gone with had they not won the draft lottery.
Exactly. It's a pretty easy decision when you have a guy that's viewed as the consensus #1 pick.
Exactly. Look, the Rangers, I always get the feeling the Rangers haven't scouted the QMJHL for 20 years, but they're always going to pick Alexis Lafreniere first overall.
Yeah.
So it's not always about the players you draft. And this is difficult to gauge because we don't have that information. We don't know who was on their list. And sometimes players are acquired at a later stage. They have guys that they really want. Like the Rangers, the names they're going to use are going to be a bad example, but the Rangers really liked Brendan Lemieux and Libor Hayek in 2016. And they were unable to draft them, but years later they were able to acquire them in trades. Now it didn't work out, but those are the type of players that as a scouting staff, you still focus on, you still target them, even if you cannot get them. But he also worked in Columbus for 3 years, from 2012 to 2015, where he worked directly under Chris Morehouse. I think Chris Morehouse was there already then. Hold on, let me actually look this up before I.
There's always a connection. Every time that you think there isn't something to have one connected with the other, I
just want to make sure I get this. So he worked together with Chris Morehouse, who was also a scout at the time in Columbus.
Not surprised.
And there's always connections,
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with Andrew Schneider. It's a little bit confusing that we have a player Schneider and a scouting director named Schneider, but
at least you're not Sam Rosen in the booth when he has to say one name that's almost identical to another. This to this. it's a tongue twister.
True. Yeah. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I have nothing negative to say about Andrew Schneider or what was the other guy now? Garth Joy.
I like that. I like that pickup for the Rangers. I have high. Not that I'm going to see much of what Garth Joy is doing right from the jump. It seems like it was a good hire for them.
It's going to take a couple of years to see if it really pays off. These draft picks. Look, we're still waiting for Philip Hedl to hit his stride, and he was drafted 5 years ago.
One thing we can say about Philip, though, is that he was adjusted to the NHL rather quickly, has had his ups and downs, but let's appreciate the man for stepping up in the most important stage of them all. If he can do that's exciting for this year. It really is.
Look, the postseason we're drifting off a little bit, but the postseason with that kid line of Lafreniere, Hedl, Kakko, that was the highlight for me of the postseason.
Yeah. And hopefully Kakko is the biggest question mark this season now. No denying. Is he going to make that Huberdeau-esque jump in which he's been comped to from his draft year and which would hold true, especially even at a younger age? Or is he someone that's going to continue to loom as a 25 to 35 point guy? What is Kakko's ceiling going to be in this upcoming season? That's a big question.
This will be his 4th year after being drafted, right?
Yes.
Or his third year.
Third year.
Fourth. Wait, what year is it?
2022.
Yeah, 2022. Yeah. Okay, so he has played 3 years. This is his 4th year.
Correct.
Since being drafted. The current 52 goal scorer on the team, Chris Kreider, in his 4th season after the draft, he had 2 goals and 1 assist in 23 games in New York.
I know, but you can't. I wouldn't compare the two though. The reason why I brought Huberdeau was from one top pick to another.
You can, because development is linear. A second overall pick.
No. I think you're misunderstanding my point here. Is that Kreider, when drafted, was not expected to make that jump right away and went to college. It's a different story with Kakko, is what I'm saying, as someone that was expected to make the NHL from the jump, in which he did. Mm-hmm. So that's the separation and comparison is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah, no, of course, but development is still it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
If you want to compare him to a second overall or third overall pick, the Sedin twins didn't hit 50 points in a single season until they were 24 and 25.
Yeah.
And Kakko was only 21.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Van Riemsdyk and Andrew Ladd were 24 when they hit 50 for the first time. Look, this kid is only 21. He's only been legally allowed to buy a beer for the last 6 months.
It looks like he had a very good summer, though, from things I saw.
Yeah. No, definitely. Oh, yeah, I know which picture you're talking about.
Yes.
No, and this is the thing with young players. They're a year older. Hopefully, they can take that next step. Because the players that had career years are probably not going to be able to follow it up. Chris Kreider is the 5th player in NHL history to record his first 50-goal season after the age of 30.
And this will surely, as much as it pains me to say, I do not expect Kreider to score 50 goals this year.
Well, here's the thing. The other 4 players never had a second 50-goal season.
My point.
So
this was his anomaly of a year, I believe.
Yeah. Same with Adam Graves in 94. When Adam Graves had 52
Exactly.
That was his anomaly of a season.
Yep.
So he's going to regress a little bit. If Lafreniere and Kakko can pick up the slack, that's great.
And let's keep in mind that the Rangers had Kreider excelling while Laffy and Kakko stayed rather underwhelming point production wise. So again, if they can just provide what us fans hope they can, which is assumably 40-point seasons, I'm not asking for a lot, from a fan perspective at least. Now, granted, doing it on the ice is a completely different situation. I get it, but for just asking them to both as a top 1 and top 2 winner in this top 6, give me 40 points minimum apiece. Maybe we're going to see even more than that. Like, who knows? This was somewhat the expectation that I had last year for them, and neither of them hit those strides. And while Kreider excelled, doing the one thing that no fans expected. So with the assumption that Kreider does go back to, say, being between a 30 or tops 40 goal scorer, which I feel like is still a little far-fetched. As much as I love Kreider, we got to see him really back it up again this year for me to be confident about it. What are we going to get from these kids? And it's going to be very important for them to take another step in their game for the sake of the Rangers and where they are right now. Not that it's going to drastically impact their development per se if they have another underwhelming year given their ages, but for the sake of where this team is and what they proved so much in their first year, they would be regressing if they don't get a step up in production from those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, and they need to. I don't want to see Dryden Hunt or Semi Blay in the top 6.
No one does.
No, and if that happens, honestly, I'm going to tell you now, if I tune in at midnight for a Rangers game and one of those two is in the top 6, I'm going to bed.
Go to bed. Don't waste it. No. Even if they win, don't waste it. Be like, did Dryden Hunt get the hat trick tonight? Like, if so, then.
By the way, Dryden Hunt only scores when I'm in the country anyway. So
true. So it sounds like you need to just stay in the U.S. Maybe Dryden Hunt will be 2022 Chris Kreider out here. Who knows?
I'm gonna be in the U.S. in January, so he might score a couple of goals in January.
Yeah, we got to meet up. Jesus, I can't believe we haven't even done it yet. January, we got to make that happen for sure.
Well, I'm not going to be in New York, though. I'm going to be in Columbus, Orlando, and Seattle.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Why? Why so far?
Well, I'm going to Orlando for a wedding. And my fiance was like, the Rangers are playing the Columbus Blue Jackets 3 days before the wedding. You want to fly to Columbus first and see the game? I'm like, okay. And then she bought tickets right next to the Cannon, which is fucking awesome.
Might as well bring your earplugs.
And then one of my friends who I've known for about 10 years who lives in Seattle was like, so when are you going to come visit? Like, we can actually fly there after the wedding. So we're going to go to Seattle for 10 days, see a couple of Kraken games, some Seattle Thunderbirds and Everett Silvertips games. He just bought a new house, so we'll be the first people staying in his guest room. He has like this entire floor with like a fan cave, and we have our own bathroom, and yeah, it's always nice when you can save on hotel fees on a trip. So.
If you can save any type of fee on any type of fee and trip, it's big. But okay, all right. Well, I'm sure you have a great time when we get there again. We'll definitely meet up at some point next year because I know you'll be in the States more than just that trip. But for this, Steven, this was episode 63, which means we have to talk about the quick history of the Rangers. The number is 63. How many people wore the number 63, Steven?
Well, there's one that we actually mentioned today.
Okay. So I'm just
during the
blanking
recording.
right now. That's okay.
We mentioned him when we were talking about Brennan Othmann. His name came up.
When we're talking about Brennan Othmann, it's not a current prospect on the team because he hasn't played a game with us.
No.
You're talking about a previous player.
Yes.
What year?
2014-15.
Who in God's name?
Well, I'm giving it away now. Or maybe not.
No, you're not. 2014, 2015, 63. Had it been a forward.
He was an NHL All-Star pretty recently, actually.
What? Why am I blanking? Oh my God. He was on the Cup Run team?
No, 2014-15. So the year after.
The year after. No. Why? Why don't I know this? Okay.
He was instrumental in a come-from-behind victory against the Minnesota Wild.
Oh my. Oh, there we go. All right, it clicked. All right, my boy Duclair. I don't know why I was losing my mind so much for a second. I was like, what's happening? And the All-Star recently, that really threw me off. I was like, who in God's name?
Yeah. No, that one throws you off because he doesn't really. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like he's an All-Star. Yeah. So the game I was referring to, sorry, it was a 5-4 win actually.
No, I remember that game. That was a crazy game for the Rangers. Yep. And was that the only goal he scored with the Rangers in one of them?
It was his first goal. Let me actually see.
And it just trickled through too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, let me actually
my
see.
My memory is not mistaken.
I had 1 goal and 6 assists in 18 games.
Yep. I always knew Duclair would be a good goal scorer.
So can you name all 6 teams he's played for then?
Yeah, I should be able to. All right, let's go. I'm not going to look at the live chat here too. We got Ottawa, Columbus, Chicago, Florida. I'm literally aware of all of them, so I don't know why I'm blanking right now. Ottawa, Chicago, Columbus, Florida. 2 more, Tyler. 2 more. Not Detroit, right? Not Detroit. No. I'm just thinking original 6.
Well, there's 1 original 6 team in the remaining 2.
Okay. Shit. I thought this would be easier.
The original 6 team should be fucking easy.
I know. I'm blanking. You know when you blank, Steven? I'm not trying.
I know, but I mean, if you look at your shirt, you should get the original 6 team.
Oh, obviously the Rangers, dude.
Yeah, there you go.
I wasn't even counting that, so my mistake. Okay. And then there's 1 more. There's one more team in there.
Who do we trade him to?
Arizona.
Okay. There you go.
All right. I was so far removed from that first deal for the Rangers. I was just focused on the past 3-4 years. Okay. Yeah. All right. Enough of making me look like an ass today, shall we?
I can't believe you almost forgot the Rangers there.
I know. I didn't almost forget the Rangers, but it's like we just talked about them.
You skipped it, yeah.
Exactly.
By the way, in last season for the Florida Panthers, Anthony Duclair in 74 games had 31 goals and 27 assists.
Oh, wow.
In true Ranger draft pick fashion, he missed 60 points.
Of course.
He had 58. If that isn't the most Rangers thing ever, to have your prospects always fall short of 60 points. Unbelievable. Until Kreider, of course, this past season.
All righty, Steven. It's that time. We're over an hour and 10 minutes into the show. I think that's where we're going to wrap up the show. This was episode 63 of Rangers Review. Guys, we'll hopefully record. We're going to try for early next week. No guarantees by the time the World Junior Championship ends. Steven's going to be away in Scotland for 2 weeks very soon. So should we not record, then we'll be away for a couple more weeks. And then we'll get more in the swing of things into September and then obviously into October with the season beginning. But until then, I want to thank everyone so much that chimed in this episode either on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and listen. All that's great stuff. Thank you guys so much. Steven, any final words before we get out of here?
Yeah, if you're not doing anything else today, just watch some World Juniors hockey, man. It's super exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure to watch the World Junior Championships. I know I need to get caught up, so I'm definitely going to be doing that. But for everyone, again, that's that boy Steven. I'm Tyler from Wardy NYM, and we'll talk to you guys again very soon. Let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.